Hi everyone, I'm Kelly, and today I'll be teaching you guys about some of the factors that influence consumer behavior and the buyer's decision process. So, let's begin! First of all, there are 4 factors influencing consumers' behavior. They are cultural, social, personal, and psychological. Let's start with the culture factor. Culture is basically the set of the basic values, wants, perceptions, and behaviors that we learn as a member of society from our families or our schools or churches that we go to. For example, in the Chinese culture, I've always been taught that staying silent while eating is a way of showing respect towards others around me. Whereas in the Japanese culture, some of them may be taught that the slurping sounds while eating is actually a way of showing gratitude and appreciation. As you can see, these differences in culture values shape people's behavior differently, therefore changes their consumption behaviors and habits accordingly. Next, with the social factor. Have you ever struggled on making a decision on whether you should buy this or not, or if you should buy this or that? For example, should I buy this new iPhone 13 with this really gorgeous green color so I could show off to my friends? Or should I buy this not so new but still pretty good iPhone 12 so I can save some money? Or in a more daily life related example, should I get this noodles for lunch? Or should I get a sandwich for lunch? When you struggle on making these decisions, what do? Yes, you may roll a dice or flip a coin to the side, but more often, especially when you're trying to buy something that's really expensive, you would go to your friends or family members to ask for their second opinions. That is social factor. Next, with personal factor, it is inclusive of a person's age, economic situation, lifestyle, personality, and their self-concept. First 4 are pretty self-explanatory, but what is self-concept? Well, it's basically how a person acts differently when they're put in different situations. In situational self, where Mike is having a dinner party with his colleagues, he would have a drink of beer due to the peer pressure, even though his ideal self tells him not to and to drink water instead for better health. And when Mike is alone, his real self urges him to drink Coke to enjoy himself, even though his ideal self is still insisting him to drink water. In other words, it's a process of the angel and the devil fighting inside the mind. Coming to our last factor, the psychological factor, we're looking at people's motivations that affect their decisions. When looking at the psychological factor, we cannot avoid studying Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's basically a triangle that states the 5 categories of human needs, going from the most basic needs at the bottom of the triangle to the more complex needs at the top. Now, after all that talking, do you guys still remember the 4 factors that influence consumer behavior? I'll give you 5 seconds to recall. Right, they are cultural, social, personal, and psychological. Great job! In the second part of our lesson, we'll be looking at the buyer's decision process, that is, the consumer's experience when purchasing a product. I'm going to use one story to walk you through this process. So recently, Serena just graduated from high school and is planning on buying a new iPad to support her upcoming studies in university. She realizes that her current iPad mini 4 is too old and laggy and is not compatible with the Apple Pencil, so she cannot write notes with it. So she realizes that she needs a new iPad to replace this old and crappy one. Therefore, she goes on an information search to see which models would satisfy her needs. So she types the word iPad on Google search, which leads her to the Apple website with all the models listed out. She also goes to her friend Isabel, who already owns an iPad, to ask for her opinion. After a couple days of comparing, Serena finally settled down with two final options: the 256GB iPad Air, which contains more storage, and the 128GB iPad Pro, which contains less storage but with a better looking camera. After another 2 days of struggling, Serena figured that although she really do like the camera on the iPad Pro, storage is more important for her because she will be taking lots of notes in the upcoming 4 years. With that in mind, Serena goes to the Apple Store and purchases the iPad Air. But after she buys the iPad Air, from time to time, she still keeps rethinking about her decision. Luckily, after her bestie supported her by telling her that it was a great decision she made, she finally accepted her new iPad Air and the story ended happily ever after. Now, let's rewind a bit and fit the story into the buyer's decision process model. First, when Serena realizes that her iPad is too old, it's a recognition of need. Then, Serena goes onto the internet and her friend for information search. Then is the evaluation of alternatives when Serena struggled to make a decision between the iPad Pro and the iPad Air. Following that is the purchase decision of buying the iPad Air. And lastly, it is post-purchase behavior when she re-evaluates her decision. When we put all that together, this is the buyer decision process. Now, to sum up our lesson, remember the 4 factors influencing consumer behavior are cultural, social, personal, and psychological. And the steps of the buyer decision process are recognition of need, information search, evaluation of alternatives, purchase decision, and post-purchase behavior. So, that's the end of our lesson today, and please like, comment, and subscribe. Hope you learned something.